everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. Firstly, thanks to everyone who showed up to my AMA this weekend. It was a ton of fun, but not as fun as what we've got today. Today we're looking at an archetype that actually might be kind of broken despite its ridiculous name. We'll see what Konami localization does with it, but in the meantime, it's called Prankid. So here's the list, and there's more than a little that's suspect here. As always, I'll give you a little bit of background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, Prankid is an archetype of little stinkers of every different elemental type. So far we've got an earth, a fire, a water, and a wind one, and I'm sure someday in the far-flung future, we'll probably have to deal with a dark and a light one as well. In the meantime, we've got these punks, Rock, Lamp, Drop, and Pulse, each of which summons a different Prankid from deck once per turn if they're used for a Prankid Link summon or Fusion summon. As long as you can get a couple of these guys on board, it's usually a quick climb to 4 Prankids, which you can use to make several of their thematic Link monsters, as well as, under the right conditions, good generic ones as well. They're an amazing setup archetype, and their trap and spell allow you to Link summon on your opponent's turn, which is great news for their boss monsters, which can self-tribute to destroy all of the monsters or spells and traps on your opponent's side of the field. The monsters are also the right type and attribute for some extremely powerful individual cards, most notably, Totally Awesome. However, this powerful plan is not without its caveats. There's 2 things we need to account for. Firstly, you need to open exactly 2 Prankids, preferably with different names, and secondly, you gotta open a polymerization to get some of them on the field. Their associated fusion spell is extremely searchable, but unfortunately for us, it's also extremely xenophobic. It locks you out of anything but Prankids until the end of the turn, and I want to make a Boral Sword, dang it! Because of this, we're playing both 9 ways to get polymerization, the better of the 2 fusion spells, as well as an embarrassing 9 ways to get the field spell. Thankfully, we don't exactly need our normal summon, since we'll use polymerization to trigger the first 2 Prankids and Rocket's effect to bring back the ones we used, and because of this, we can play Planet Pathfinder. Slap in some hand traps like Impermanence and Ash and some extenders like Instant Fusion, and you might have stumbled onto something playable. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First are our Pathfinders, enough said, followed by 3 King of the Swamp. This could be any polymerization searcher, but this bad boy can be returned by Toad in a pinch. Finally, our 2 Ash Blossom before we get to our Prankids. 3 copies of Rock, the Thunder one. This one can special summon a Prankid by cycling a card in your hand, and it's the only one that can whiff. Since we're on so many redundant elements, it's great for banishing that second Pathfinder to get something relevant. After that is Lamp, which deals 500 to special, followed by Drop, which gains 1,000, and Pulse, which foolishes a Prankid card. For spells, we've got Instant Fusion for Rocket, 1 1-for-1 for Pulse, 3 Polymerization, the better of the 2 fusion spells, 3 Terraforming for 3 Prankid House. This card adds a Prankid to hand on activation, then fiddles with attack when different types of monsters are special summoned to your side of the field. Basically, those effects are just protection against hand traps. After that is 3 Prankid on the Loose, a quick play spell activatable during any main phase, and 1 Prankid Prank. Technically, this works like another polymerization, but it's a little bit worse. I prefer to search it for its second effect, which returns Prankids from the graveyard to draw cards, since you burn through them so quickly. Finally, we've got 3 copies of Impermanence and 1 Prankid Super Scheme. This lets you Link summon at instant speed and can be banished from the graveyard to return Prankids from your deck and decrease an opponent's monster's attack. It's situational. Harpy's Feather Duster actually isn't that great versus everything, especially when you have to burn all of your Prankids to use it. So in matchups where you don't need it, you can search it, and otherwise it's a fantastic bin with Pulse to make sure you don't run out of gas. In the extra, we've got 1 copy of Butler, which is every Prankid but Rock and contribute itself instant speed to destroy all your opponent's monsters, 2 Rocket, which can attack directly, but more importantly, can tag out for 2 of your Prankids in the graveyard, 2 Weather, which gives your Prankids Armades and can tag out on your opponent's turn, in which case the Prankids can't be destroyed by battle. Then we've got 1 Toad and 1 Rorgon, who contribute itself at instant speed to destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls, 2 Doodle, who can add a Prankid spell or trap to your hand and can tag out to add Grave Prankids back to your hand, 2 Bow Wow Wow, who gives Link monsters 1,000 attack and can tag out on your opponent's turn to do the same as Doodle and protect from card effects as well, Boral Sword as payoff, Nightmare's Unicorn, Phoenix, and Cerberus. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Orgel, and while not exactly a tier 1 meta threat, it gets a lot better when you have access to Needle Fiber, which our opponent does. God, I hope we never see this card in the TCG. Our opponent's going to start by normal summoning a copy of Righty Driver, which gives them Lefty Driver from deck, and immediately makes Needle Fiber, which they'll use to get a copy of Jet Synchron to their side of the board. They go into Summon Sorceress, then they will put an Armageddon Knight on our side of the field and a Jet Synchron at their link point, discarding a Destrudo. They'll go into Diver, go into Galeta, use Diver's effect to bring back Scare Zone, go into Longrius, then use Scare Zone's effect to bring back Galeta at link point, use her effect to shuffle one of those suckers back for a Babel, set a copy of Called by the Grave, and pass it back to us. So we can make things happen with this hand. We're going to activate the effect of House to get ourselves a Rock. We'll send Ramp and Rock. We'll trigger those Grave effects for Rocket, and what do you know, there's a Called by the Grave. So we're not going to get a Ramp, we are still going to get Rock. That's probably good enough. We'll go ahead and get a copy of Pulse. We're then going to normal summon a Planet Pathfinder, get ourselves a Polymerization, then go into Unicorn at link point. Now, unfortunately, because we are linked, they'll be able to send ours back to the extra deck, but they won't be able to do much else negating its effects or anything. They'll use Galeta as well, shuffling back as much as possible before we tag out into Pulse and Rock. We'll then go into Doodle, use Pulse's effect, Doodle's effect, and the House effect to mess with attack and defense points before we go to battle phase. We have a drop on our side of the field, so after combat, we're going to activate Polymerization to go into a Weather. It's pretty good on our opponent's turn. We'll set this copy of Rock and pass it back to our opponent. Our opponent's going to draw into an Ash Blossom. That sucks. They're going to start by normal summoning a copy of Armageddon Knight, then using Destrudo's effect to get themselves a second copy of Needle Fiber. That Needle Fiber is going to get a Cannon from deck, then they'll go into Galeta. Diver's going to bring back Scare Zone, and then they're going to make another Longrius. That Scare Zone this time is going to bring back Cannon before they make Link Haribo, but this is great news for us because, of course, Weather gives us the Armades effect. They pass it back, so I elect not to tag out because we want to do a little bit of damage. We're going to activate another Prankid's House, and there's Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. We're just going to attack directly, hit him for 1,700 points of damage before passing it back once again. The onus is on our opponent to do anything, and they really can't get back into this game. Once they attack our Weather, we're going to go ahead and tag out, and they realize it, so they concede. Our second match is up against Authorized Magician, and we not only are going first, but also have drawn a pretty good opener. A copy of King of the Swamp representing a Polymerization and a couple of Prankids with different types is exactly what we're looking for. Ash Blossom is kind of just the icing on the cake. We'll start by activating King of the Swamp to get a Polymerization to hand, then firing that sucker off for a Rocket. We're going to trigger the Grave effects of Pulse and Drop to get ourselves a Ramp and a Rock, and after those are special summoned to our side of the field, we're going to go ahead and tag out of this Rocket for the drop and the Pulse back. We're going to link summon a Bow Wow Wow, triggering the Grave effects of Ramp and Rock to get ourselves another drop and really any other Prankid here. We choose Pulse, before link summoning a copy of Doodle to get a Prankid's Prank to our hand and ending on that and a Totally Awesome. We'll use Prankid's Prank at end step to shuffle 3 of these suckers back and draw a card. Our opponent draws into another Scale. They're going to start with a Regeki. We will gladly take that. Thank you, Totally Awesome. We'll set it to our side of the board and then use Totally Awesome's effect to add drop to our hand. Our opponent's going to activate Duelist Alliance, but we have the Ash Blossom for that. They'll go ahead and set a Purple Poison before special summoning exactly one monster. That's going to allow them to go into a rank 4. They go into Dark Rebellion. They'll beat over our monster despite our best scheme. We'll take 4,400, but we should be able to win from this position, especially with this set Regeki. We'll go ahead and flip that sucker up first, then we'll use Prankid's Prank to get a token, normal summon a Ramp, go into Doodle, use Doodle's effect to get a Prankid's House to our hand, and Ramp's effect to get a Pulse to our side of the board. We're going to use Prankid's House to get a copy of Ramp, and then we can poly into our Battle Butler. That should be enough to seal the deal. He's going to get an additional 500 attack points from Prankid's House, but it shouldn't matter since we still have an additional attack from the Bow Wow Wow. We get in for 35 and 35. Alright, so it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on Altergeist, and I love playing against Altergeist for these. They push these brews to their limit and see just how many pieces of disruption they can play through. Unfortunately, our opener is only mediocre. We have access to 2 different Prankids, which is great, but unfortunately we have Prankids on the loose instead of a Polymerization. This locks us into Prankid-only Link monsters and Fusion monsters for the entirety of the turn. Additionally, we have a copy of Prankid's Super Scheme. It is great against Altergeist, but blind, I think I'm more likely than not to just banish it off of Rock to draw a card. We're going to start by activating this copy of Prankid's House for a Rock before Prankid's on the loosing into Rocket. We'll use Rock and Pulse's effect. We'll also use House's effect to protect them from hand traps, which our opponent doesn't have any of. That's nice of them. We get a drop and a Ramp from our deck before we go into Rock and Pulse and go into Bow Wow Wow. That's going to trigger the Grave effects of Drop and Ramp in order to get us, well, another Drop and another Ramp as well. We're then going to go into a second copy of Bow Wow Wow, a Doodle to get ourselves a Prankid's Prank. We'll activate Terraforming to get another card out of our deck, and then shuffle 3 of these suckers back into our deck to draw an additional card, hoping for an Ash Blossom, but finding a Rock. Our opponent draws into a Spellbook of Knowledge. They'll start by normal summoning a Meluseek. I want cards back in my hand, so I'll activate 1 Bow Wow Wow, adding 2 cards back to my hand, before they they destroy our second one. Afterwards, they're going to Spellbook of Knowledge, use Melee 6 effect, and then activate Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Thankfully, they allow us to get into main phase 1. We'll go ahead and activate Prankids on the loose. They alter Geist Protocol. In response, we're going to go into Rocket, then we'll trigger Rock and Ramp, and House, and they'll trigger Multi-Faker. So we're kind of in it right now. We can't activate spell cards. That's not ideal, but we do have a Pulse and a Drop on our side of the board. They're going to Multi-Faker into a Meluseek, which telegraphs that they have a lot of cool stuff in their hand. They're going to negate our Rocket's effect. We have to force that activation. We go into Rorgon. We're going to try and banish as many spells and traps as we can, and what do you know? We actually get them all. So we might be able to do this game. We know about one Conchieri, so after we get all of these grave effects off, we're going to activate Prankid's House. We're going to activate Doodle and Normal Summon Drop, and we should be able to punch through Conchieri, but what do you know? Oh god, they have 2 of them. Okay, this should be illegal. We'll go ahead and pass it back to our opponent using Prank in the end step, of course, to do nothing because it's negated under Conchieri. They draw into an Altergeist Camouflage, they'll go into a Meluseek, they'll go into a Hextia, and I don't think we can win from this position. They're going to Normal Summon a Marionetteer to get back a copy of Reincarnation before they attack over for 1100 and 2000, getting in for 1600 direct, and passing it back to us with a hand of double Pathfinder. We draw into an Instant Fusion, which is pretty good, but not good enough. Alright, so it's time for game 2, and oh my god, we bricked. Oh, shoot. Okay, well, this can happen. If you don't naturally draw a Prankid, it's actually very difficult to make anything occur, mostly because Prankid's House has a very hard OPT on it. Therefore, hands with Prankid's House plus Terraforming, Terraforming plus Planet Pathfinder, and of course, Prankid's House plus Planet Pathfinder actually don't do anything. We're going to hope for the best. We're going to start by activating Prankid's House to get ourselves a Prankid. Normal summon a Planet Pathfinder for a second copy of House, which our opponent seems very keen on allowing us to do. Then thin a little bit, getting ourselves a copy of Polymerization, setting an Impermanence, and passing. Our opponent's going to activate the effect of Marionetteer, that is Impermanence target number 1. But unfortunately for us, they have a follow-up, setting for and attacking. Horrifying. We draw into the 3rd house. Come on. They're going to activate Protocol to get a Multi-Faker, and we will Ash Blossom, which does nothing, because those effects can't be negated while Protocol is out. Read, Tron, come on. We go ahead and Polymerization into a Rocket. That's going to get us the grave effect of 2 Prankids. They're going to chain a Silquidius, putting it back into our extra deck, but we should still be able to make things happen, especially after we rock into a second Polymerization. We'll go into Rocket once again, and now we have 4 Prankids at our disposal. Once we trigger these grave effects as well, we have a Rock, we have a Ramp, we're tagging out, we got a Pulse, we got a Drop, let's go into Bow Wow Wow, let's trigger House, let's go into Doodle, and force the Protocol. So now at the very least, we can chew through all of the Altergeist on their side of the board, but unfortunately, once they are allowed to draw, they can go off once again. They're going to get a Materialization off of this Marionetteer, and then activate Materialization that they already have set for Silquidius, then activate the Multi-Faker they put back in the hand for the Meluseek, then go into Hextia, getting a second copy of Multi-Faker. We will Super Scheme, they will chain Silquidius, we will chain Bow Wow Wow, and they will chain Protocol. We get to resolve the effect of our Super Scheme, which brings this Hextia back to 500, but unfortunately, with 3 cards set and 3 cards in hand, we are way disadvantaged. We draw, realize we can't win, and will concede. So we're back with the deck. It's a blast, it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot missing before it can be reasonably competitive. First, it's missing setup tools. God, I really want to stop playing garbage like King of the Swamp, but without on-theme setups, Toad setups and Boral Sword follow-ups are its only redeemable game plan. This problem is compounded when you realize all the advantage you would be getting by resolving Rocks and Prankid Pranks is effectively empty, since you're just likely to draw into more combo starters anyway. 2, it's missing a Link 1. Now, we're not going to get this because it would admittedly be nuts, but a way to trigger a Prankid without having to rely on fusion setups would be rad. And 3, we need some more Prankids. Consistently opening 2 of anything is hard these days, especially when so much of your deck has to be devoted to Polymerization. I want nothing more than to play 13 hand traps in this sucker, but without a high density of Prankids, we're stuck with crap like Pathfinders to fill the space. All in all, it's a pretty potent archetype, and if we get more waves of support, I would not be surprised to see it become a power player. I know some people are already tinkering with Superbolt Dragon setups, and if people can find a consistent way to make that happen outside of draw Superbolt, we might have the next meta deck on our hands. So that's that. Been a while since I've been able to be positive during the end screen. Feels good. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/monobluetron every Monday from 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time, and if you have a certain idea for a deck or archetype you want me to take a look at on a future episode of this show, let me know in the comment section below and I'll do my best. Otherwise, I'll see you Thursday.